Welcome, Internet, to the PixelPlay Podcast, your weekly podcast where we get together to discuss everything video games. I am one of your co-hosts, Kaylan, aka Catastrophe, coming back to you live on camera as I got my computer working and fixed. I'm also joined, as always, by my co-hosts, Adam at CS Radical and Chris at Jin and Chris. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Fantastic.
I feel
That's all
weird.
I got.
I actually see you, and you're
I know.
moving. I don't know what this means.
It's not at like 6 frames a second. It's great.
I mean, to be fair, we always saw you move if we had the Discord app open somewhere else, but like,
Yeah.
I usually don't, because the way that I set up, because I'm the one controlling the feed here, I usually have our YouTube feed on the screen that normally Discord's over. So I never see what's happening in Discord. So for the last couple of weeks, all I've seen is either J. Jonah Jameson or a still picture of you. So this is weird again. I don't know what to think.
You can look at my like gorgeous 4 out of 10 appearance now in live action as I move around.
I mean,
Oh,
or
come
do
on,
what I
you're
always
an
do,
ace.
just stare dead in the center of the screen where my
Far
face
too
is,
generous.
but you know.
You just stare at yourself the whole podcast? Okay, I
mean,
do the same.
you know, there's a reason for it, though. At least it looks like I'm actually looking
Guys.
to you, the audience, because if I just constantly look somewhere else, it looks like I'm not staring at you anymore.
Guys, we're all here on a podcast. We are all narcissists. Let's not kid ourselves.
Everybody cares what I have to say.
I mean, have you not listened to the show enough? I clearly like the sound of my own voice.
Speaking of hearing our own voices, this week our voices are going to be talking about Sony being ordered to pay refunds in a ruling against gambling in Austrian courts. We're going to be talking about the most interesting, fun, or worst IPs used in video games. And we're also going to be talking about Call of Duty coming to the Switch. But before that, Adam has told us he has a special announcement. Adam, what do you have to share with the class this today?
Yeah, so anybody who knows what I've been up to recently, I've been partaking a bit in speedrunning culture in terms of like marathons and stuff, as I got a chance to commentate on one of my friend Oscar424's run at AGDQ this year. And apparently I caught the bug, because this is not the only thing that I'm doing. So starting March 31st to April 2nd, I'm actually behind the committee that is going to be starting a brand new marathon charity event. It is called Randothon. It will be taking place on the Rando Mania Twitch channel. So that's Rando as in the first 5 letters of random, Mania. And we are going to be doing just nothing but randomizer speedruns or races. And it's all going to be for NAMI, N-A-M-I, which is a charity that deals with helping people with mental illness. So we're going to be getting the chance to do that. I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of people that, you know, we've gotten to work together on this now. I was part of the game selection committee, so I had the absolute fun task of seeing how stressful that actually is and trying to pick the people that are going to play, because there were more entries than we could fit. So it was quite interesting to be like, shit, this one's really good too. I don't want to kick this one out. But there were some that had to be cut. But we have some really cool ones coming in there for those that didn't know. There are randomizers for games I didn't even know like had one. Like Metroid Dread's going to be in this. I didn't realize Switch even had randomizers at this point. We have one interesting one where it's going to be Dr. Mario, but they play the original on NES, the one on Game Boy, and the one on Super Nintendo. And every 15 or 20 seconds, it rotates. So they have to keep up with every time that it switches over. It's so cool like that. And then obviously your standards, we've got 3 different Zelda games. We have, I believe it's 1 Link's Awakening and Wind Waker. We've got a couple of Final Fantasies, 4, 5, 6, and Mystic Quest, if I'm not mistaken. Chrono Trigger, Phantasy Star 4. Like, we got a bunch of like old school games. Most of them are old school because, well, they're easier to ROM hack than, you know, that's what makes Metroid Dread so interesting to me. The only 2, like, I guess, modern-ish ones that we have is Metroid Dread and the PC version of Deus Ex, the original, which is interesting. So, like, we've got a bunch of cool stuff going on. And yeah, March 31st to April 2nd, they're going to be running each day from 8 a.m. to roughly around midnight, depending on how late the last run goes. And that's going to be an absolute blast. A bunch of our friends are partaking. We got a bunch of people that I've never had the chance to deal with before that we're going to get to watch. It's going to be a fantastic event, and all of it's going to be going to charity. So I cannot wait to get started on that. And if anybody is interested in looking that up, Randomania on Twitch, keep an eye on that. We are going to be doing a couple of runs over the next couple of weeks just to get things prepared for it, because we also have to test out stuff because we've never run the technology before. So we got to make sure shit doesn't break. But otherwise, it's going to be fantastic, and I cannot wait, and for a good cause too, no less. So I hope anybody listening to this, you don't have to donate, but come check us out and at least tell people what's also going on so we can bring as much awareness to obviously mental illness as possible because, well, everybody's affected by it.
One more time, what's the link or what's the Twitch channel?
Twitch.tv/randomania, RANDOMANIA.
Awesome. Cool. That sounds like a lot of fun.
If anybody wants to hang out in the chat, I'm going to be there for like 3 straight days. I saw a bit of the lineup, and like I'm a JRPG fanatic, especially retro ones. And when I saw Chrono Trigger, Phantasy Star 4, the Final Fantasies, especially Mystic Quest, my heart sank, and I was like, well, I know what I'm doing for 3 days straight.
And it's also, if you're fans of the older games, like these are also games that are not being played in the vanilla manner. These are all randomized now, so you're gonna see weird combinations. So like I've played the Super Mario RPG one. The characterizations can be randomized. You could actually be playing as Peach, but you have Mallow's moveset. It's like some of those things are so weird and bizarre how they work out. I think that's what's gotten me back into speedrunning, is because randomizers at least make them interesting. In the same way that, like, I could never imagine being a Sonic the Hedgehog speedrunner. I love Sonic games. I can't imagine playing Sonic 3, which is my favorite one, like hundreds of times to try to get a good time. I just can't imagine doing it. And I don't even think I could do that for like a Final Fantasy game, which I also love because, well, it takes a little bit of time to go through a JRPG, even if you're doing it fast. But at least when it's randomized, it's always different. So, and I think that's why I like them, because no game is the same.
Cool.
Yeah.
Chris, what have you been up to this week?
Playing retro games, apparently. So I don't know what's wrong with me. All of a sudden I realized that I've been playing nothing recent, but like lots of games recently, but nothing that is recent. I played Phantasy Star 1, which is from the Sega Master System, not even the Sega Genesis. I got the all of these are
forget
like
the Master System existed.
the only game I know that was on it is like that, and then they ported I think Sonic 1 and 2 onto it, and it was the Game Gear versions. It was just like this weird thing they did later. But yeah, I played Phantasy Star 1 using the Sega Ages version off of the Switch eShop, which is because it's like $3 or something, which is the best way to play that game if anybody ever wants to. The game is old. It has certain things with it, like it's a first-person perspective when you go into dungeons, and it's just hallways. And you'll be walking and turning left, right, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I'm severely lost. I don't know how to get out of here. I don't know how I ended up in here. They added an actual map that as you go through the dungeon, it fills out on the screen for you where you've been, where you're going, where the hallways are, where the traps are. Great way to play that game. As soon as I finished it, I was like, well, now I need to know more. And I'd never beaten it before. Went and played Phantasy Star 2, which I'd also never beaten before. I'd only ever played Phantasy Star 4. And I'm almost done that. I'm so close to being done. There's like a few dungeons where you get like the ultimate weapons, and then you go to the final dungeon. So I'm very, very close with that. As you can see on the screen, this is Phantasy Star 1. This is also the version I played. So they left everything as is. You can make the actual game like full screen if you want, and not have the map and everything in the bottom right, and your character's health and everything in the top right. But as soon as I saw how helpful that stuff was, I left it on.
Especially with old school JRPGs, which, good lord, you could use a bit of a UI.
Yes. Oh my goodness. It is ridiculous.
I mean, it's great when you're playing Phantasy Star and you learn Saner, and you're like, I don't know what that is.
Oh yeah, I have had an iPad open with technique lists and who characters are and stuff.
Yeah, I played Phantasy Star 4 right around the same time you were playing these two games, and I had skills, techniques, and a map open because I'm like, I have no clue what the hell I'm doing right now. This is ridiculous.
Like you can see on the screen right now, there was a thing called secrets you can buy, and it's incredibly important to buy it. You actually need it to move on. You have to go into the shop, ask the guy 3 times to buy his secrets, and on the 3rd time, he's like, all right, fine, $200. And he's like, what? How the heck am I supposed to
just
know
let me
that?
do it the first time, you son of a bitch.
Also, what is secrets? They don't tell you.
Secrets.
No.
It's a secret, Chris. Why would they tell you what the secrets are?
I'm pretty sure it's like a dungeon key or something too. Like it's how to progress in all dungeons going forward. Oh, anyways, I loved it. It was great. I've been playing GoldenEye, like the Xbox version. Like the original game but on Xbox.
Yep.
I've been playing Legend of Dragoon, another JRPG. They just released it on PS5.
Okay.
And
Did
PS4.
you actually play it, or did it crash?
I got to a point, and then I waited till they patched it, and then I continued.
I can't believe that still to this day. everybody for years was clamoring about a Legend of Dragoon game finally getting dropped, or at least ported onto PlayStation consoles again. And they finally did it, and they fucked it up so bad. It's a port, it's an emulated game. How do you screw it up that badly?
Yeah, you use a certain spell or go into Dragoon mode and the game soft locks.
Like,
and you're like,
how did no one QA test that?
They didn't have
did
time.
somebody just play an only hit fight over and over again because they're like, I don't want to do anything else. Too much work.
Yeah, it works. It's a PS1 game. What could go wrong? Though I do want to give Sony some huge praise actually right now, because the game was dropped on the PSN store, obviously. It's part of PlayStation Plus Premium, which I can't even remember if I have or not right now. But you can also buy the game standalone for like $10, which, first of all, that's awesome that you can still do that. But when I went to go buy it, it said I already had it and I could add it to my library. And it turned out it's because I had bought it on my PS3. And they are honoring anybody who bought the PS1 Classic on their PS3 or on the Vita. You're allowed to just get it, add it to your library on your PS4 or PS5 for free, which actually kind of blew my mind because of how many generations back that really is. Whenever it's like one generation, like you bought on PS4, you still get on PS5, to me that makes sense. But I mean, when you think about it, like that's like buying a game on the Wii shop, and now you have a Switch and you went to buy something. It's like, no, you already paid for it. Like that's not happening, right? Usually that doesn't happen. So huge kudos to Sony for that.
Although you're probably something to be like, could I just get the PS3 version that wasn't broken?
Honestly, I bought it on PS3 and added it to my backlog, so I don't even know if this counts as my backlog anymore because I'm playing an emulated game I bought 2 systems ago that I never started. Who knows? But yeah, I've been playing a lot of retro games. That's what I've been doing.
Yeah, I've kind of in that same rut too. Like I played, like I said, Phantasy Star 4. I've also messed around with a little bit of GoldenEye. I tried Wo Long. I didn't like it at all, but I also don't get along with Soulsborne games nearly as much, so I didn't catch it. I played about an hour of it and went, nope, no, I'm good.
You said so long to Wo Long.
Yes, I did.
Get out. Chris, get out.
Anyways,
I also tried Soul Hackers 2. I figured I'd have a good shot at that because it's a JRPG also made by Atlas, same people that did the Persona games. Unless you really like staring at anime ass all the time, it's not that interesting, and even the anime ass kind of doesn't be as interesting after a while, so eventually the story had to start coming through, and after about, I don't know, like 5 hours, it wasn't doing anything. I'm like, Japan, I know you like really boring, mysterious things that don't make any sense in the first parts of your games. Can you just try to pretend to like something else for a moment? Because holy shit. Like, Persona games are notoriously slow to start. Like, Persona 5, I don't think you actually open things up for, like, 3 or 4 hours. But at least in those 3 to 4 hours of tutorial-ish stuff, there's something to dig your claws into. Whereas with Soul Hackers 2, I'm like, so there's a couple of girls with nice butts. That's all I have. If I wanted that, I could just play Dead or Alive Beach Volleyball and get the exact same experience, and at least it's over in 15 minutes. All right, good. We're not going to play this anymore. So I'm kind of in this weird spot where I'm trying to figure out what to do. Now, Guilty Gear Strive just got put on Game Pass yesterday, so I'm probably going to start looking into that. But it's a fighting game. I'm not going to play it online, so it's not going to last too long in terms of my time in that. So apart from that, I don't know. I'm just kind of going in between a bunch of things, just trying to find something to do. I mean, I'm going to get lucky because I assume if MLB The Show 23 goes on Game Pass, I'll at least have something in the background I can play because MLB The Show games are actually decent for sports games. It's the only one that I'll actually like give my stamp of approval on. So I'm hoping for that, and I think that's towards the end of this month, so at least I have something to potentially look forward to. But otherwise, I guess it's just a matter of, you know, the next thing that Game Pass throws on, or if we get a new list of what's going to be on PlayStation Extra sometime down the road. Because otherwise, I am super bored, and that's starting to freak me out. I don't like it when that happens, because then you start just sitting playing the same 3 things over and over again, expecting to like it more, and it doesn't work.
So, for me, I've been playing Dead Space, and if you want a gameplay, Dead Space is awesome. Never played it before. This is my first time into it. Such a good game. Like, it is so creepy. It is so good. It looks amazing. I'm absolutely loving it. I'm like chapter 6 or 7. I'm like 5-6 hours in. It's so good. Such a good game.
How many jump scares?
Like, I mean, there's like not a lot of jump scares, like in the sense of like boo kind of thing, but
It's
like
definitely more atmospheric and more just like
it's atmospheric and like things will come up behind you and stuff, but it's not like the whole boo jump in front of you kind of thing. It's more like you hear something, you hear it before you see it, and
yeah.
you're just like, okay, where is the monster? And then it'll be behind you or coming from around a corner and stuff. Like it is so atmospheric. It is so good. Like if you are a fan of the real original Alien movie, this game is for you.
I love the original Alien
And what
movie.
helps with
It's
that
just so
game
much
too is
easier
like
to watch.
it's so much of a whenever because the idea is like, it's not just simply headshots. Like you have to cut off limbs and stuff to
No,
try to deal with them.
headshots are actually not super effective. Like
So it's also
the way you really
retraining your brain to not do what you normally do with most horror games, and at the same time, like the idea of you trying to frantically cut off limbs so they stop chasing after you, because even if you cut one leg off, they're still crawling. So it's still
Yeah.
it's like the the classic thing of like a guy trying to shoot a zombie to death and just like die and you just keep firing at it. Like it's that level of like stress, which is I don't consider that scary. I think that's actually why Dead Space. I never finished the original when it came out back in the day, but I actually played through it a bunch because it wasn't so much scary as it was stressing. And I think that's
Yeah.
two completely different things. I don't think Dead Space is that scary. I mean, there are moments that you'll freak out a little bit, but it's more stressful than it is scary.
Yeah, I would say like once again, it's not a scary like it's a scary game, but it's more tense. Like you're just on edge. It's not like you're, oh my god, don't want to play with the lights off. Like I love playing in the basement with the lights out, playing in the dark and stuff. Like it's just got that atmosphere that just causes you to be tense and on edge. And yeah, it's an awesome game. Totally worth it. I'm glad I had a remake because I'm glad I got to kind of
Yeah, and I'm glad they've done such a good job with it because I
Yeah.
mean, that's the kind of stuff that we need. Like I know not everybody wants to see remake after remake, but like if they're done well like this, I could care less. Like I'm just happy to see stuff like this get brought back to a newer generation too. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into this week topic. So the first one that you brought to the table, Adam, was an Austrian court declaring that the FIFA Ultimate Team is a form of gambling. So there was a case brought forward in a small court in Austria where one of the plaintiffs, including a minor, said that they gambled away 400 euros, which is equivalent to about $425 US, in the game, and says that because of the random nature of the game and the rewards, it violates the country's gambling laws. I don't want to go into the whole thing. We're not lawyers in all that sense, but simple, easy question. Are loot boxes gambling? Have at it, guys. Adam, I know you kind of have a cartridge full of ammo to go with, so I'm going to jump with Chris first, and then I'll let you jump in. Is that okay?
I can see his face just ready. You can tell he's got a spreadsheet open in front of him. I'm constantly torn whether it's gambling or not. It's tough because gambling in the traditional sense is you put in money to get more money or something like that. Or like you gamble on sports, you gamble on things, it's usually like that. It's not about winning baseball cards, it's not winning cosmetics, it's not winning whatever the heck it is that you get in all of these Ultimate Team things. So for me, it's kind of like there's times where I'm like, okay, listen, loot box sucks. I hate them. I want them to go away. I think that's a really shitty way of giving out DLC, basically. Like it's just a really crappy form of giving it out. But if it's like legal, like where the courts can get involved for gambling kind of thing for minors, at one point I think it's not. And then, there'll be another time and I'll hear a story and it's like, all right, this, 7-year-old kid who doesn't understand went and ended up gambling away all this money in FIFA Ultimate Team or whatever, and I'll read it and I'm like, okay, yeah, that kind of is kind of like gambling. But then again, I'll go back and I'll be like, yeah, but what's to say they couldn't have just taken that same credit card and bought like 15 games off the Nintendo eShop with their parents' credit card? They didn't gamble anything, they bought products, but the parents weren't watching a kid who doesn't understand money. It's not that they didn't understand gambling, they just didn't understand money. So I'm constantly going back and forth. And the fun part will be you both could convince me either way, probably in this podcast tonight. And I will be going probably back and forth through the whole time. Kaylan, you're going to be like saying something. I'll be like, no, you know what? He's right. And then Adam, you're going to say something like, no, maybe Adam's right. And then I'm going to still be going back and forth. So I'm torn. I'm 50-50 on the gambling part, but I definitely hate them. I don't want to Like if it was buying a character for a sports team or something, like I'd rather just every character's $3 and I buy the characters I want for $3 a piece. Not, well, buy this treasure chest and you have a 1.6% chance of getting it, and then the addiction kicks in where you've bought like 15 of them, you still haven't got the character, and you're like, I just dropped $130. Like that sucks, and
Yeah.
and I don't agree with it. But again, legally gambling where courts get involved, I'm going to be torn the whole time. I think I'll never decide.
We'll circle back at the end and see where you fall. Adam, where do you fall?
I don't care about the legal precedent anymore. I want them gone. So I'm willing to say they are without any second thought, because I want them fucking gone. If you want to actually ask me, like, if I actually think it's gambling, it's not if it's physical. I find with digital, because you don't keep them, because these games get shut down. So I think in that opinion, because there's no actual value to what you have anymore, you're essentially gambling for that game that you're playing. I feel like I'm at the point now that I'd be okay with saying the trading card games are gambling, even though they are physical. But that's just me in my head going, yeah, let's just call it that, so we can just across the board have all of this random chance stuff just be classified as gambling. So it's just, there's no other way of people getting around this. It's just legal for everything. That's how extreme that my brain's going to, because I'm so tired of this in general. These sports games are the worst for them, in my opinion. I know mobile games are really bad for it too, but like, I find the sports games are the worst ones because you paid full price to already have the game at launch, whereas with most of these mobile games, it's a free game most of the time. So you could also make a case of morality, saying that, well, you didn't pay for the game, so I mean, how else are they going to make money? Fine, whatever. I don't care if that's the front. But EA Sports, and I'll even say MLB with San Diego Studios and Sony, like, no, like, I don't care how much you charge for that game. If you charge $1 for MLB The Show or NHL or FIFA, don't be charging the stupid amounts that you charge for these things. And that's another problem too. I don't think my opinion would be nearly as harsh if the pricing was fairer, because I did some crazy math. Let me pull up the document that I put together for this to just show how stupid it is. So I'm comparing, because I recently started playing NHL because it was on Game Pass, so I was curious and wanted to see what happened with that. And I messed around with it for a couple hours, and I realized, as somebody who's played MLB The Show, just how fucking different and how horribly ripped off you get with each game. So, do you guys want me to start with the worst case or the best case?
Worst case.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're starting with NHL then. That was easy. EA Sports. So the cheapest pack you can buy costs 100 points, which is $1.40 Canadian. Doesn't sound like that big a deal. But if you want to get it with the free currency, it's 5,000 coins, which is not easy to earn. Like, you can earn it through challenges and stuff, but once you do those challenges, those coins are gone. You can't re-earn them. So you can only just play the same game over and over again and get like 200 coins per game, unless you're like really good and you play at superstar difficulty, or you're playing online. But like, if you're just trying to play offline and just like grind it out on like the easier difficulty so you're not stressed at all, it's like maybe 250 coins. So you're gonna have to play like 20 games to get a single pack. And what does that pack give you? 10 items. At least 3 of them are players. They aren't always players. It could be 3 players and a bunch of random crap that you don't want. Only one of them is going to be gold, and you're thinking, well, that's not bad. Gold is only 74 overall and up, so they could be not even NHL players and still be gold. And then anything over an overall of 80 is only 24% chance in each of these packs. And if you wanted to spend real money to get that pack, you can't just spend $1.40. You have to get them through points, and the cheapest amount you can do is $2.50, which is $3.39. So if you want to just open one pack, it's going to cost you almost $3.50 Canadian. With MLB The Show, the cheapest pack is a slightly more at $1.49, but you can literally buy the same level of currency that it takes to buy that one pack, so you won't have to pay $1.49. And that currency is also earned for free. It is not it's not a premium currency that you only get with money. It is the same currency that you use. And you can earn that currency very easily. There is a mode called Conquest, and they have a bunch of them that they've put out. This game has been out since April, so NHL's been out since October. They have a bit of an advantage of having more time, and they put out one recently. I spent maybe 3. It's like Risk a little bit because it's just you taking over territories, almost like a game of Risk. And then when you finally get to the main player's stronghold, you face them in an actual versus game in the actual baseball game. Depending on how many units you have when they go to charge it, it depends on how much the difficulty level that you can choose is. So if you walk in with like 2 and they have 20, well, you're only going to play them on the hardest difficulty. But if you walk in and they have 12 and you have 50, you can play it on rookie and it's super easy and you can just trounce through them. And I did an entire map in that mode. Took me maybe about 3 hours. And I earned thousands of stubs. The challenges, which are basically just complete the map, and which is not hard to do, gave me a total of 20 normal packs, 5 premium packs, and 1 elite player choice pack where you actually get to choose a player that is of high value. If you try to spend 3 hours in NHL, you're like, I tried it at the very beginning with nothing locked away, with nothing like already rewarded. I went through challenges. I went through different modes. I earned a total of around 6,000 coins, which is enough to buy a couple of decent players. With what I did in MLB, I had several elite level players. I had several chances to go into the auction market and get top tier, like 99 overall players, and was able to do that. And even with some of the packs that I opened, I got elite level players. In NHL, I've opened a few packs. The best player I have gotten was 80 overall, which is a very low level NHL player. It's not that much. And that's for about the same amount of time. It just, like, that's the part that pisses me off with these games in general. And that's why I also will give a lot of love to San Diego Studio, because sure, they still do the same thing where if you want to pay money for packs, like there's a 50 pack bundle that it's going to charge you like in total like $55, which is absurd. But at the very least, if you want to earn stuff for free, you at least can earn tangible things for free. I've been playing, I want to say, since I got NHL, maybe about 8 hours of Ultimate Team, and I have at best an okay roster. If I played this online, I'd get my shit kicked in. I could go online now with baseball, and almost my entire roster now is very high level. I could stand a chance. I probably wouldn't, because most of the people still playing the game at this point are probably really good. There's probably not that many new people. But at least I have a fighting chance. And when it comes to the gambling conversation with loot boxes, to bring it all back after my little venting and mathematical session here, I've never had a problem when loot boxes first happened. And it wasn't until companies understood just how easily susceptible you were to these practices that it started getting charged more, that it started offering less, that the odds started to get less and less in terms of getting anything tangible. You know, when you first were thinking about this stuff, you could get like decent players. If you were playing Overwatch, you could get at least something tangible, like a cool skin or something. Now it's like, if you're lucky, you get something that you go, that's not bad. But that's not the reaction I should be getting if I spend $50 on something. It shouldn't be, that's okay. It should be, yes! Like, if I spend $50 on trading cards, I could probably buy like a starter set for like any trading card game, and you'll get a decent amount of cards. Like, you'll likely at least pull a couple of things you can use. Whereas you could spend $50 in these sports games and get nothing that you already don't have, or nothing that's even useful to you. And it's at the point that, you know, if we want to talk about the legalities of whether they're gambling or not, I think that there's enough of a gray area that, you know, it could go either way. But apparently in European courts in different countries, they look at it as that. And I'm just at the point now that I'm going blanket across the board. Fuck them. Name it all gambling so we can at least get rid of it, or at least have it regulated properly. Because the fact that, you know, for a game that costs $69.99 or $79.99 or whatever it is, wherever you are in the world, and you still have to play a mode that if you want to get anything tangible, you're spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And I have to look on YouTube and see stupid thumbnails of these like grown-ass men looking like they're excited because they spent $1,000 on a video game that they paid $70-$80 for. is insane, and I'm done with it. And if that means blanket across the board calling all of this gambling to the point that even other things outside of this industry are regulated, that's a bitter pill I'm willing to swallow now, because I'm so tired of these companies getting so unfathomably greedy and getting away with it. So if it means sacrificing something so that EA Sports can stop making millions of dollars off of the backs of easily susceptible people with gambling addictions, I'm okay with that at this point.
See, I'm coming at it from a different perspective. Like, do loot boxes suck? Yeah, absolutely. Are they predatory? Absolutely. I'm in a weird position that I don't usually play a lot of multiplayer games, so for me, that's not something that impacts me directly. And I'm not to say that I'm advocating that, yeah, loot boxes are good or they should stay, but they're not gambling, right? The idea of gambling is that you are risking money in the hopes of winning something else, typically more money, right? If you lose, you come away with nothing. Loot boxes suck and loot boxes are predatory, but regardless, when you drop cash on one of these loot boxes, you are getting something. Whether or not it's something that you want, whether it's something that you need, or something you already have, you are still getting something, right? You're taking a risk, but it's not gambling because you still have something after you spent the money, right? You're buying something randomly, you're buying something at chance, but you are still buying something, right? That's no different than a store that you go to if they have, and I've seen them like you see them at a lot of different stores where they have like random loot bags, right? They'll put a bunch of stuff in there and they'll charge it for $5. By that definition, if we're going with this idea of loot boxes, that's gambling because you don't know what you're getting, right? You can still purchase things with chance. Are you making an educated decision when you're purchasing? I would argue probably not. But you can't then go and say, "Oh, it's gambling," or "I regret what I bought, and so therefore I feel like I'm a victim." Right? I'm not saying that it's not fair. I'm not saying that it's not predatory, but you are still getting goods and services, whether they're digital, whether they're physical. It doesn't matter, right? Like you know what you're purchasing. You know that you're purchasing something that is digital, and you know that you're purchasing it randomly, right? You don't get to pick, and so like that's the risk that you are taking, but it is not gambling. And I argue because you have something at the end. If we go down this slippery slope, we've already talked about collectible card games, but like you go to a Walmart now, and there are so many loot bags that you can buy for kids in toy sections, right? You can buy like I know like my niece, there's loot bags of like stuffed animals or like little action figures, like Hot Wheels cars. Like there's loot boxes and all those things. And by that definition, those are gambling, and they're not. I mean, if you go to a carnival or a fair and they have one of those games where you like pick up a duck and like there's a prize in it, like that by that definition is gambling. Like they're not. You're still getting something at the end. You're still getting what you paid for. You pay, so you use the example of NHL. You're paying for 3 hockey players and a bunch of random items. At the end of the day, after you've paid that fee, you are getting those items. You don't know which ones you're getting, and the odds might suck, but you have gotten what you paid for. You're not out of nothing. Whereas if I go to Vegas and I put 50 on black and it's red, I have nothing to show for, right? That to me is gambling, and that I have lost money and got nothing in return. Loot boxes suck. Loot boxes are predatory. Loot boxes can be used in very like devious or like unscrupulous ways, but are they gambling? No. And I disagree with what the court findings is. There's a conversation to be had as how did a minor get access to a credit card to spend $400, and it sucks that you spent that. Hopefully it's not, going to be detrimental to your family or anything, but that's a larger conversation of how did you get into that situation. But it's not a result, or it's not the fault of FIFA or PlayStation that you did this. So that's where I fall on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest argument that comes in is that what do we do to regulate it then? Because when it comes to loot boxes and games, we're not talking like when we talk about gambling, you obviously think like slot machines, you think sports betting. But what is important about sports betting and casinos and stuff? There is an age restriction. That doesn't exist in video games right now.
Well, this comes down to the argument of whether we're labeling this as gambling or not. I think if we wanted to have some regulation, like something I think that would make sense is say, hey, here are your odds of what you're gonna get. Like I think there's nothing, I'm not opposed to them saying, hey, here's the odds of what you're gonna get in each pack, so I can make an educated decision when I'm purchasing. But that comes down to, do we even need to regulate this? Because as I'm arguing, it's not gambling.
then I think the matter just becomes like, how do we deal with it? And I think the problem is we can't unless government comes out and makes like some level of new labeling, which by the way, they won't because they're lazy. So the gambling option to me seems like it's the only way around it. And if that's the only way around it, I'm kind of at the point that, like I said, like I'm willing to sacrifice if that's needed, because we need to figure out some way of solving this, because I'm not willing to just let things go if it means that kids are going to get suckered into this. Because I mean, there are kids that are stealing their parents' credit cards. You have teenagers who get their first credit card and max them out on these things. You have grown men who have already predispositions to gambling addiction that fall into these same traps. And these companies will turn around and be like, yeah, but that's not the same as going to a slot machine or whatever. Because, you know, when you put $5 into a slot machine, you could come out with 0, but you could come out with 20. But if you plop in $5 into this game, you're not going to get 0. You're going to get something. I'm like, yeah, but the difference is at the end of all of this, none of these things have actual value still. There's no value to these items. I don't care what anybody says. Like, Pele and FIFA doesn't have any value. I don't care what the marketplace is. It's digital currency. It's not It doesn't say Pele market $15. It says X number of coins. That's not money. That's 0 value. And when that game shuts down, is it going to have any value then? Are you going to be able to cash out your cards? No. You have nothing. So in my opinion, gambling is taking money, and the chance of coming out with 0 value exists. That is loot boxes.
Like, but the thing is, like, we talk about it. So you are, like I said, I'm of the mind that you are getting something. Is it worth something? I would argue no. Like, once again, I don't participate in this area, so like, people are buying it because there's a perceived value, right? Once again, value is all in about perception, and so people are buying it because they do see value or they do want something. What do we do about loot boxes? We don't buy them, right? That's the thing. They're only being done because they are profitable. They are making money for the company, right? In the same way that back in the early 2000s, like the online Game Pass was a thing that everyone paid, and so the only, like, those stopped because people stopped using them, right? And so I think if people stopped going for loot boxes, they would disappear. But, and like we said, people have addictions to these sort of things and everything, but there's a perceived value. Do they know that this is going to eventually get disconnected? Absolutely. But they still choose to, right? And so I don't know. Like I said, I'm not advocating for them. I'm not saying they're good, but I'm saying they're not. It's not something that like needs to be regulated and omitted. It's something that just we as consumers need to vote with our wallet, which is something that
I'd love to take that as a legit reason, and I probably at one point thought about that, but in the same manner that a lot of people thought that by boycotting Hogwarts it was going to suddenly make the sales fail, it's not going to happen. There's nothing that Madden has been a gross copy and paste for almost a decade straight, and it still makes millions upon millions of dollars. So the vote with your wallet thing, I'm done making that comment with these because it doesn't work. Because the people that are voting with their wallet are not the customers that EA is selling to. They will never stop. The only way that this is going to get alleviated, well, it's going to be one of two things. We're either going to have to regulate them, whether it means through gambling or whether it means through something completely different, which I don't think is going to happen. It'll be only the gambling, and that's the only way we have. Or this is going to continue, and it's never going to stop. And we're going to hear article after article, story after story of thousands of dollars being maxed out on somebody's credit card. We're going to get story after story about people losing their houses or whatever else because they fell into this trap. And is that still something that they in their own mind had the choice to? Sure. But in the same way that like we have regulations for gambling in terms of sports betting and casinos and stuff, like we have nothing in place for this. Like that's my biggest concern, is that we don't have anything in place. You know, there's nothing technically stopping EA Sports from literally they have to put in their pack odds, you know, what the odds are of getting an elite, and it'll say less than 1%. They don't say the exact amount because that exact amount could be changed to 0.00000. I can keep going forever with zeros here. And as long as they put less than 1%, they're not lying. They can make it to a point that it's literally impossible to get anything good. and people will still buy it because all it takes is that one person to show on YouTube or on Twitch that they got it, and everybody thinks that they can be that guy. And we were talking earlier about trading cards, or when you go to Japan and you see all the machines with the little pocket things you can plop open, and there's little figurines. Those things exist in this mortal coil. A football, baseball, hockey, digital trading card does not. And if it's not gambling, then the industry needs to figure out how to regulate that, except they're not going to because there's no monetary incentive for them to do it. So, like I said, the bitter pill I have to swallow is we either do nothing, which is what we're currently doing, or we have to go the de-gambling route. And as much as I know the slippery slope that exists here, I'm willing to accept that because this is the only way. It's either that or this continues. And like I know I'm beating a dead horse and saying the same things over and over again, but that's just it to me.
There is a third option in that if you have a situation that has loot boxes, and once again, I'm not arguing that they're gambling, but you have a thing that if there is loot boxes, and we make an argument that children, one, should not have credit cards and be able to purchase this, and two, don't have the full developmental capability to understand the odds that they're taking, make loot boxes a M for mature, or adult, put it at that highest rating on the ESRB, right?
Yeah, but then we still get into the same territory where parents will buy the game because they especially if it's Madden. You think a parent is going to go in the same way that they would look at Grand Theft Auto and be like, "Oh, I can't have this for my kid," and then people will be like, "Well, just age gate it." You think kids don't know how to get past age filters? We've been doing that since we were 12 when we were on Newgrounds. It's not that 100%. Uncommon.
100%, but it at least puts some barriers to it, and then this comes, and I feel like the whole rating thing is becoming more and more prevalent as people who grew up as gamers are becoming parents, right? I now know when I'm looking at games for my nephew or eventually my son, I'll know just by looking at a rating generally what the expectation is for that experience, right? And I can then make that decision. I think the idea of mom and dad not knowing what a game rating does or means is kind of becoming old, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure we could make that argument too, but I mean, keep in mind that just because the three of us in this room all agree on that we would be able to properly assess these things, if you look at the rest of the world, they're kind of fucking stupid. So there needs to be some sort of protection that isn't just I don't think are you 18 years or older is going to cut it. There needs to be something actually regulated properly in the same way that the ESRB does with ratings, so that you're technically not supposed to be able to buy a game that's M for mature unless you show photo ID. I don't know what it looks like to do this for loot boxes, but there's got to be something. And either that or there's got to be some sort of regulation where they say you can't charge this much for X amount of digital value. There has to be some sort of limitation. I don't know what it is. I'm not a lawyer. I sure as shit I'm not gonna be able to figure that out. But what we're currently at now is not good enough. And I don't know, we'll have to see what Europe starts with, because it depending on how far this goes through that system, because then you can start looking at other places in Europe, and if it starts to get in its way into Germany, into France, into the UK, then you can start looking at what North America does. Although, let's be completely honest, I don't think states would do shit. But hey, it is what it is.
Chris, where do you fall? I know you kind of started at on the thing. Did you get swayed one way or the other? Or are you still sitting on the fence?
I was swayed back and forth about 6 to 7 times. Every time one of you spoke, I was on your side immediately. I couldn't believe it. Adam, you be talking, I was like, yeah, this is gambling. We got to shut this down. You talk and be like, no, these are just like a machine. You put a quarter in and you spin it and you get a little toy. That's gambling then. We can't have that. Then Adam, you'd speak again. I'm like, we got to go to the courts.
Burn it all down.
I was so back and forth.
All right, physical manifestation of Twitter, calm down.
I can't make my own decisions. But no, I think that they suck. And I do think that something does need to be done when it comes to kids. If you're 38 and it's when I spent $700 on Ultimate Team because I have an addiction issue. Well, that then go deal with your addiction issue.
Yeah,
you're
that's kind of your problem.
That's on you.
I mean, there should still be a way to kind of help with that, but I mean, in the same way that a casino can't really stop you from walking in if you're of age. So
Exactly. But
Yeah.
if you're 11, like you're not supposed to have a credit card. So I feel like there's something in there where it is an age thing where kids don't understand the value of money yet. I have a 7-year-old nephew. He doesn't understand it at all. Money to him is just like, well, why can't I have this $90 thing? Because I'm not giving you $90 randomly. You're 7. Go get a job. Like they don't get it yet, right? So yeah, when they're just like, oh, it's cool. I want these characters. It's easy. I'll just buy it. I'll buy it. I'll buy it. It's like if you go stand in a Walmart in the Pokemon trading card area and watch kids freak out that they can't just have all the Pokemon cards because they don't understand money. Like it's the same thing. But the thing is that a kid can't walk into Walmart with a credit card and be like, this is mine, and take it out. There is that age restriction where they haven't.
They're not Kevin McAllister from Home Alone.
Yeah, like he pulled that off. That kid would have had so many loot boxes.
Man,
Home Alone 8.
that kid could have gotten that Pele card.
No, remember his parents didn't love him, so he wouldn't have, but his siblings would have.
Yes.
You don't leave a kid twice by accident.
They were trying to get rid of him.
100%. 100%.
Joe Pesci, you should have done your job.
Speaking. Wow, that was dark.
Speaking of Joe Pesci.
Well, technically, yeah, we could go that route. We were going to talk about IP games. We're going to talk about licensed games or games that are based on...
The Home Alone game?
And that's a thing.
I mean,
it was a thing.
They were things.
It's a segue. Yeah, so it was recently announced that we're getting a Golden Girls game.
Okay, I'm pretty sure it's a fan-made game.
Oh, wait, no, just a second. My wife is playing Hogwarts right over there, and all she heard was, there's a Golden Girls game, and she immediately just went, oh! She was so excited.
Yeah, I think it's
what you're getting now after Hogwarts.
Sort of fan-made thing where it's like, somebody's trying to like make Golden Girls into sort of like a Persona game, which is just fucking hysterical to me.
So good. Yeah. So I thought we could have a fun conversation of like, what are some games that use licensed IPs? What are some of our favorites? What maybe are some duds? Ones worth checking out.
Well, I've made a small list of only the best ones. And these are they are awful. I can't believe these existed.
Except you have them in your hand?
Oh, I wrote them down. As soon as it was like, this is a topic, I'm like, oh, I'm on this. I've only got a few. But
we'll go round table. So we'll do one each for a bit. So what's one that you have there, Chris?
Does anybody remember the PS1, I think PS1, classic Pepsi Man?
Yep.
Yeah, there's Pepsi Man and Cool Spot.
Seen on GDQ several times, Pepsi Man.
No, not Cool Spot. It was a guy in like a onesie suit.
Yeah, it was like an endless runner, right?
Yeah. There was Pepsi Man. That was good God.
Like some of the weird, like the food ones were always weird to me. Like Burger King had like this weird like stealth,
and it was
game.
good.
The thing is, that was good. That was fun. I liked that.
Adam, what's one that you got?
All right, well, Chris actually knows about this one if he remembers the old Cartridge and Quarters episodes when I randomly found this in our This Week in This Week in World, where there is a Kiss Doom like first person like shooter that's called Kiss Psycho Circus: The Nightmare Child. And it's so random. It's like it's almost like I guess like Thief or Deus Ex like level shit. Like it's so bizarre. You wouldn't know, like from looking at the footage if you're watching on YouTube, you wouldn't know this is a Kiss game. You would just think, oh, I didn't know Amnesia was doing another game.
No, this is definitely Kiss. You can tell because of the
axe.
Well, the axe is a guitar. That's not a real axe.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, it's just one of those weird things where you're just like, wait, that's what? Well, it's not surprising that Kiss has a video game. Let's be honest. Kiss
will put their name on
literally has their everything. Like it's. If you find out that there isn't something with a Kiss logo on it, then that's when it's a real surprise these days. So a video game isn't that unusual, but you would have thought it would have just been like, I don't know, some shitty like musical related thing, not a Doom Deus Ex first person shooter kind of looking game.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if like
thing right there. That is some classic gaming physics. Just climbing a bookshelf.
Just hovering,
while holding like a trishot. while holding a freaking like turret. Oh, that was great.
So one of the ones that I was looking at that I was actually surprised was better than it had any right to be. Do you guys remember the Bourne Identity game for PS3? I think it was better than it had any right to be.
A lot of fun. Yeah,
It was
that
so
was
good. Like
way better than
the
it deserved.
fighting combat was so good. Like it had like kind of a Max Payne meets like the Punisher style game, and I thought that was really fun.
Yeah.
Also, the Punisher game was also really good. Do you guys remember that one?
Oh yeah, that
Yeah.
one was good.
Yeah,
That was good.
Yeah, that was
Well,
fun.
I've got another
Yeah, what do you got?
classic. I'm sure everybody would remember the classic McDonald Land on NES. No one
No.
remembers.
I mean,
when you played as
NES era, like, yeah, that would make sense because that's when like the mascots were in full swing.
Yeah, and you didn't play as any of the mascots. You played. I remember in the Oh, I don't know if everybody remembers this, but in the '80s, McDonald's had McKids, and it was like, yeah. So you played as just a normal ass kid called a McKid, and you got sucked into like Ronald McDonald's like crazy McDonald Land, and it was the most generic 2D platformer, and it was awful. And a fever dream. Like when Ronald would show up, it was like, oh god, like dude is not okay. That is, you should not just show up like that. That is creepy. There it
Why
is.
does it look like you're fighting a Jawa?
Because Star Wars was very popular at the time.
Look, it was
Are
the
you
NES. They could only do so much. Give them a break.
Wait, so you're collecting hamburgers, and the weapon that you have is throwing apples at people?
Well, yeah, because you don't want
that's
to
the
keep
most
the
dangerous
apple.
thing
If
if
you
you're
want to
going
keep
to
the
McDonald's.
burgers.
This
Exactly.
is
The apple slice.
pre-apple slices McDonald's, Kaylan.
And I like how the McDonald's land looks like Baghdad or something like that. It's or at least the level that Adam's showing.
That's
Look.
probably the only level. I don't even remember. It was bad.
Look, stop asking questions, okay? It's an NES game. None of them made sense. I mean, for God's sakes, you were lucky if they actually played decently back in those days.
That's true.
That is true. That Nintendo seal of approval. It was a lie.
Let's see. Do I go? Okay, do you guys want bad or weird?
Let's do weird.
Yeah, weird.
Okay, well, the classic newer one, the KFC dating sim.
Ah, that was the next one on my list.
I have not heard of this.
What was it called? Oh my god. It wasn't. Sorry. KFC. I love you, Colonel Sanders. A finger licking good dating simulator.
It's finger licking
Colonel Sanders.
Great.
So sexy. He's so sexy. It doesn't make sense.
The finger licking in the title just has so much innuendo into it too.
And look how goddamn sexy that Colonel Sanders is.
It doesn't make sense.
Which is good God, whoever came up with that idea in the marketing department for KFC
Hold
are
up for a
fucking
second.
geniuses because they knew the audience they were trying to reach.
Got a quick question for you. If you guys are just listening to the audio podcast, this won't mean anything to you. But look in the corner by the clock. Who's that random person there? They just have like a JPEG of some like. It's a JPEG of just some random stock photo in what is otherwise an anime still action kind of video game.
Look, I was too busy. I'm sorry, I was too busy getting lost in the just majesty that. Oh, never mind. There's also the dog with a chef's hat. Never mind.
Chef?
Yeah. See, I have no time to look at random pictures in the background when there is a dog with a chef's hat on.
And
why is the dog wearing
eyes?
Why is the dog wearing glasses?
Why not?
So he can see.
Have you played dating sims?
I mean, once again, if this is a dating sim, why is the dog here too?
Again, you're asking way too many questions.
So many questions.
Again, have you not played dating sims? There is literally a dating sim called Hatful Boyfriend, and the dating choices are all birds. I
mean, good on KFC for being to the truest extent exclusive. Like, cool. Or being
I can't
like
believe it was made by KFC. Like they promoted it, they did it. This isn't a fan game.
No, and it's not the only one that's done that. Like Dead by Daylight just recently did something similar.
To be fair,
you actually can like date the monsters in that game.
This was probably a launch game for the KFC console when it was being developed.
Oh yeah. Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I haven't.
Oh. I have it right here.
I wish. I honestly wish. It'd be a great meme, but I am way too broke to do meme purchasing.
One that I have going to a retro thing. Did any of you guys, and this is something I have like just a fever dream playing as a kid. Do any of you guys remember the Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers?
Oh yes.
NES games?
Disney properties were so good back
then. So good.
Days.
Such a good game. Like I'm looking at images and it just brings back so much nostalgia.
Yeah, because you had like DuckTales, you had Darkwing Duck, you had
Tailspin.
like a little bit later, you had the Castle of Illusion games with Mickey Mouse.
Oh yeah, Yeah. And the Aladdin game, especially the Genesis one.
Yep.
Oh,
Oh, remember the brutality of Lion King? That
that was
brutal.
hard. I never got past the second
No
level.
one
I don't even
did.
know if I got
No
past
one
the
did.
first level.
There was two types of people who like played Lion King. Those who admitted they never got past that like can't wait to be kings level, and liars. Those were the only two people. No one ever
This is
got past
true.
that level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, games back then were a lot better with license because, you know, it was an early day, so you couldn't just make absolute trash. Well, I guess you could. ET exists.
No,
obviously, but
they were not universally better. I still stand by like Lion King was good, but like not well designed. Like,
well, like if I compare it to say a lot of games that we see today that are licensed, I think I probably give I probably give it a slight edge to like the earlier generations than the current ones.
no way.
I think in terms of overall quality, I think they're better now, but I think in terms of quantity, I think you were more likely to get a better game back then than you are today.
By sheer chance of probability, when you have 1,000 licensed games, a couple of them are going to be bangers.
Well, I think the
I would
odds are
say-
like I think your odds of if you just bought any random one off the shelf, I think you'd have a better shot than today because so much now is shovelware. Like that's the thing. We think that it's better now because most of the ones that are licensed tie-ins that we actually see are decent at best. There is so much shovelware that we don't see because we aren't browsing new on the shops to see just how much absolute garbage there is.
But we're talking licensed games here. You're not going to get someone in their basement making a licensed game because they can't afford the rights to it.
You'd be surprised. There's a lot of stuff that's like, especially like anime and celebrity tie-in based. There's a lot of stuff that squeaks
That's
through.
yeah. You know what? If we're looking at like the mobile shops and stuff, yeah.
Because yeah,
Yeah,
like
the mobile shop.
yeah, if you're talking mobile shop too. Oh god, if we include mobile games, good lord.
Probably
Like,
15
especially
different
with celebrity
Kardashian
stuff
games.
because like sure there are games like Shaq Fu, but also there are games like Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, which are actually legitimately good games.
That one was good.
No, but if you think of like, there's like amazing games that are modern now that are technically licensed games. Like if you think of like the Batman games, like the whole Dark Knight, like the Arkham series,
Knight?
Yeah.
that's technically a licensed game. Star Wars, technically a licensed property. Like there's a lot of them like that we don't maybe necessarily
Yeah,
associate.
the
as a
AAA
licensed
environment
game.
definitely makes them feel a lot better in terms of quality now. It's
Mhm.
it's the stuff that you don't see that really shows just how like absolutely brutal it is still because it's so easy for somebody to be like, "Hey, here's a few thousand. Can we make a game with your likeness on it?" And they're like, "Sure, I'll take free money."
Yeah. One series that like has had some really good properties, and I haven't played all of them, so I can't justify or can't argue for the entire franchise or IP, but like the Warhammer series has actually some pretty amazing
yeah.
games.
And they've
Like,
gotten progressively better too.
Oh yeah.
have they? Because I
Oh
played.
yeah.
So I've the two that come to mind is Warhammer 40K Space Marine. That was a really good like linear shooter, third person shooter, which was good. But then there was 40K Dawn of War, and that game is probably one of the best, if not at least the most recent kick-ass RTS game. Like they got rid of a lot of the stuff like you don't have to worry about managing like collecting resources. You get rewarded for just being aggressive and holding control points, which is now pretty much standard, but like I remember that was pretty innovative in around the early 2000s.
Yeah, like as of right now, like the Vermintide series has been getting really,
Yeah.
really good. Dark Tide just
they're
recently
amazing.
came out. I think Space Marine 2 is supposed to be coming out this year.
Yeah.
So like like Warhammer's definitely gotten way better over the years. I mean, I'm not familiar with too much of the older games, but I have friends that are pretty deep into this stuff, and every time a new one comes out, they're progressively more and more hype. So it seems like Games Workshop is doing something right over there.
Yeah. It's such
I
a good
put a-
IP, like that's just right.
Oh yeah. I put a lot of hours into the Vermintide series. I mean it's Left 4 Dead, but with rats and Warhammer characters. But
I mean,
holy
it
is
doesn't
it
sound
good.
like an issue to me.
No, it is fantastic. It's addicting and fantastic. And especially the ragdoll physics that the rats have when they die. Oh, that's classic.
Any other IPs you want to kind of throw up before we move on?
I would say for the old games, I had one rule. It was, did Capcom make it? It's probably okay as a franchise. Because they made all the Disney games. I'm pretty sure they made the Batman game on NES. That was really good. I can't remember.
Capcom or
Maybe not Capcom for them.
I thought it was
Is that
Activision.
Konami?
That I'm not
Oh,
sure.
it could be. What else? Capcom made a bunch. I know they did all the Disney ones, and that's why those were all good.
Sunsoft made.
Sunsoft.
Yeah.
Oh,
Batman Video Game is a group of platform games developed by Sunsoft for the Nintendo Entertainment System and the Game Boy.
okay, never mind.
Loosely based on the 1989 movie.
I would throw
Sunsoft.
them in there then. They join Capcom in being great.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? No. I probably didn't want to risk it. Except that Spider-Man Maximum Carnage. That game was fantastic.
Yeah, wasn't that
And that was done by LJN.
Yeah, LGN.
Which did crap for everything else.
They usually did a lot of bad stuff, and they would also
Yeah.
destroy box covers because they'd have their giant rainbow logo on top of everything.
Yeah.
Speaking of Spider-Man, the PS1 and N64 Spider-Man was also really good. I remember playing a lot of that.
Oh yeah, those were good. And Spider-Man 2. I mean, I would say that was
Yeah.
probably my favorite. That was like my introduction to open world games at the time. And
then we'll see if it's even the best Spider-Man 2 soon.
You know what was actually it was actually a really good licensed game. Did you guys ever play The Godfather?
Yeah, the one
open,
on PlayStation and Xbox, Godfather Part 2, I think.
Yeah,
that
was
one was
never
actually
played
legitimately good.
Like that was,
never
it was
got to
basically
play it.
Business being good.
It was a GTA clone, but it was so good.
Yeah, considering what else was on the market at that time, like Saints Row was still, I think, in its early stages too. So like,
Yeah,
it kind of came
Well,
out
we
of
had-
left field, being like, I didn't expect to like a Godfather game because you're thinking, the hell am I going to do with a Godfather game?
yeah, that was cool, and it had like neat ideas, like you're running some like properties and stuff. I think if I remember correctly, like it was fun.
I'm gonna try that.
It was a good one.
I will.
Well, I've got two more left. Then I got the worst one that I can think of and the best one I can think of. So the worst one
Let's
was
hear it.
pretty easy. Home Improvement on Super Nintendo is so random and it's such a bad platformer.
They go back in time to like dinosaurs.
Yeah, the first
or
level
something,
is
you
you
won't know.
fighting dinosaurs with a nail gun.
Okay, just quickly, if we're talking about like just because we talked about going back in time, TMNT Turtles in Time, best Turtles game.
Oh, I mean that's still the best Turtles
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's tough because I
Okay,
might
well-
think Shredder's
No.
Revenge is better now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I haven't played that one, so
It's basically Turtles in Time, but now. Like
Okay,
with
well, then-
just some
yeah.
and like different levels and everything, but it's
Yeah.
like they kept the same play style. 6 people can play all at once. I'd say Shredder's Revenge probably just wins because of the improvements on top of it, but like it's like the true sequel to Turtles in
Yeah.
Time.
And so yeah, like Home Improvement was a really, really bad game. Really bad.
Uh-huh.
And then the best one I can think of, and this is, some people might have forgotten about the series, and I wish they bring it back, but I don't think they do it well anymore. If anybody remembers in the PS2 and N64 era, I think, or not N64.
That'd be GameCube.
GameCube?
Yeah, it would have been GameCube, sorry. The Def Jam series.
Oh, yeah.
So Def
Oh,
Jam
yeah.
Vendetta and Fight for New York, where it was like pro wrestling meets like the rap community. So you could like beat the shit out of Snoop Dogg or Ice-T and stuff. And like a lot of people thought it was weird when it first came out. Like, wait, you're gonna put like Def Jam records with pro wrestling? And they did. And legitimately, the first 2 games, we don't talk about Icon. That game was absolute fucking garbage. But like, especially Fight for New York is unbelievably good for its time. And I wish that somebody would do it properly again, because, or even just like a remaster. Like I would just take like polishing it up and just like bringing it back with just the old formula. Because that old fighting system, like the old wrestling system from like N64 early days, still works. Like it's snappy enough that it feels like it's doing its job. And then, you know, mixing it with just like the absurdity of like Ludacris and all of these other guys just beating the shit out of each other. It was great. Like at that time, I'm like, yeah, you know what I want to do right now? I want to be a Snoop Dogg and go beat the crap out of Ghostface Killer. That sounds like a great idea right now. And the game's like, sure, go right ahead, have fun. Throw them out of a window, have a train hit them. Like there's a literal map on a subway. You can just throw guys into the subway and watch them get hit by a train. Like that's just canon in that world. So, and on top of that, they had a decently put together wrestling game, which is like, okay, I wouldn't have put those 2 things together, but it works. And I wish that would come back. But I mean, we're still working on getting like a half decent wrestling game these days. So
Yeah. Cool. Switching over to the last thing from this week that we want to talk about was the news that Call of Duty is supposedly going to be, through legally binding agreements and stuff, will be on Nintendo platforms for the next 10 years. And everyone says, on what platform? Because really, can the Switch even support Call of Duty? How do you think this is going to go, guys? Or what do you think we can deduce from this?
yeah, I mean, we've known
news?
about this for a little bit, but like the big story that was coming out was that the CMA, which is based out in, I believe, the UK, if I'm not mistaken, they've fully put out a statement that they don't think this is going to work. Like they don't think it'll run. Because
I don't
with
think
what
anybody
they
thinks
have
it'll
here,
run.
they straight up like they're not going to be able to offer like a proper game for it that's going to be like, acceptable by basis of standards because of the technical limitations of the console. Now there's the possibility they could do things like, cloud streaming or something like that. But keep in mind, we're talking about a game that most people are going to play online with multiplayer. Cloud streaming at this point is not good enough for that. It's barely good enough to play single player games at this point at 30 frames. Like, I would never dare taking a fighting game even offline with cloud streaming, because when you're talking about, frame perfect inputting, like, I can't imagine playing a Soulsborne game like Elden Ring right now with cloud streaming. You need to be so perfectly precise or you're going to get screwed. I can't imagine that with cloud streaming. And if we're talking a first person shooter running either 30 or 60 frames, yeah, you're going to want to be sure that that's not going to have massive frame dropping issues because your internet conks out for a half a second.
I just see like going through and like you're playing it and you just like waggle the Wii remote to like reload.
Yeah, you
your
know what
ammo.
it's like when you play a video game and you're running at 300 ping? How about that just at any random point? No matter whether you're playing it offline or online.
Yeah. See, I haven't like I think for me what this signals, it's an interesting concept of like, is Nintendo getting back into the HD high def? Like, are they coming back into that era of gaming, right? Like, because I can't imagine with like the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, like you're gonna have a very bad experience. And is Microsoft gonna spend the time and resources to bring a game to an inferior console that is a generation at least behind? Or is this signal that Nintendo might be looking at doing something that, can support high def, 4K HD graphics and stuff? Are we getting a sneak peek at what the next console for Nintendo is looking like?
I guess it's a possibility. I honestly think that the next Nintendo system is going to be another Switch-like system.
Oh, 100%.
I don't see how that, unless the dock is just this powerful,
That's what I'm thinking.
like a device in itself that once it's docked, you get all that extra PC or CPU, GPU power from the dock. It is possible they could build it, but it's not going to be the $300 that a Switch normally is. You'd be, stuck with paying, PS5 prices, I imagine, maybe even more for it because you're getting, a system with also a removable screen as a standalone.
Unless they I'm not a software engineer or like a hardware engineer by any stretch of the imagination, but I wonder if they could almost make it that the new Switch is just the docking station. Like that's the new console. You still have your old Switch and it there, and it plugs into this new system, and that's where the controls come from. So if you still want to play your Switch games, which let's be honest, the Switch is doing so well that Nintendo wouldn't want to cannibalize their sales. But if you say, hey, we are now going to start doing high def gaming on a physical console, like that's an option as well. I don't know. Like I don't know. Like, is Microsoft for 10 years just going to send Call of Duty out to dry up on the grapevine on an inferior console? Because they're going to be spending time and resources. Because it's not Nintendo that's going to be localizing this or
no, Nintendo's not putting effort into this for sure. I think
or is Microsoft just doing this? Is Microsoft just doing this as a way to like get their deal in so they can get Activision, and this is just a cost of business?
That's what some people have been wondering too, is if they're doing this just to be like, hey, see, we're not completely monopolizing.
Yeah. Because they also gave this same deal to Steam. And I don't know if it was Gabe Newell or whatever himself, but Steam came back and gave it back to Microsoft, according to whatever articles I read, that they were like, we don't need this. Like Steam was like, we don't.
It was Gabe Newell. I just checked it.
Yeah, like he's like, I don't need exclusives. If you want to bring Call of Duty to Steam, you do. If you don't, you don't. Like we're PC. We're going to make our money regardless. We've got some games on here. Yeah, we're Steam. We don't need it. And I think 100% Microsoft is doing this, trying to seal that deal. And it's more like, hey, Sony is like, oh, he's not going to make it exclusive. They're like, we'll make everybody an exclusive deal. That way Sony can't be like, ah, ha, ha.
I have one more crazy idea. what if there's a possibility that Game Pass is coming to Switch through the cloud
That
streaming?
would be cool.
Well, yeah,
And
but
like,
we're
I would
still
be very
also
happy.
like we're still also
because
talking like how are
that
these
then,
games gonna run?
well, that's the thing. You use Xbox Cloud streaming. That's their
Yeah.
like that. Then they're like, hey, we have the servers. They're now making money off of Nintendo users, which is a huge fan base, right? Game Pass
Yeah.
now goes mobile, and they're technically honoring the agreement that Call of Duty is on Game Pass and it's on Nintendo. So there you go.
Yeah, but we're still
Yeah.
talking about. I think the problem that is not that we don't believe that they won't put it on the platform, is that it'll be playable consistently on the platform. Which, even if it's cloud streaming the entire time, it's not going to perform the way that you think it will, because cloud streaming just isn't capable right now of being consistently a solid 60 frames without any issue. It's just never going to be until we're well into the future when, ISPs actually don't completely screw us, which good luck at that ever happening.
It's a Canada problem.
It's an everywhere problem, but it's especially a Canada problem. But hey, that's a different story for another show.
To be fair, Xbox never promised it was going to run well. They just promised it was going to be on Nintendo.
Yeah, and that's the
And I
thing.
think
Like,
Game Pass is the
we're
easiest way
not
of
sitting
doing
here
it.
talking about oh, they're not going to be able to bring it there at all. We're more talking about the sense of like they're going to bring it. You're not going to want to pay money for it though, because it ain't going to be good.
You know what I think it could also be? Because I don't know if it says in those articles, I don't think it ever promised anything about multiplayer or anything like that. They could bring, because like they've released Doom and stuff like that on the Switch, and it runs 30 frames and it's, 720p at most. They could put the single player campaign of Call of Duty on there, have the graphics lowered way down, and it'll run 30 frames, 720p low settings, I guess, and it would be there. They could
Sorry.
just do that too.
I'm just thinking when you're like, it's just like Call of Duty, but it's just downgraded. I just pictured like Castle Wolfenstein, and that's what it's gonna look
But
like.
I just
Well,
can't wait for the
Wolfenstein is on there
conversation.
too.
No, I meant like the 1988 or whatever, like Wolfenstein.
Look, I just can't wait for the conversation when
Because
that
Adam had like the
happens, and
Adam
be
had
like,
like
hey,
the
you
World War
guys can
II
buy
one.
Call of Duty Vanguard for $80 here in Canada, and you'll get 10% of what the game is. And Nintendo will never put it on sale. You'll be lucky if it ever shows under $50. And well, actually, that's kind of true for Call of Duty games in a nutshell these days. That's why I'm like hoping they all get put on Game Pass, because then I don't have to spend real money on them. But I don't know what the situation is where even if they downgrade it to hell, I don't know that it still works. Like, what are they gonna do? Downgrade it to 480p so it actually has a fighting chance? Like, it's gonna be like watching a YouTube video when you can't get HD anymore and it looks like a blurry mess.
Well, like we just mentioned Wolfenstein, and I was like, wait a minute. The new Colossus, Wolfenstein 2, is on the Switch. And I don't think it's even a cloud copy. I think it might actually just be like the game.
Yeah.
So now I'm all
it's the idea that
interested
we're
in
talking
how
about,
does
like,
it
the
run.
newer ones as they come. Like, they're saying they're going to be doing this for 10 years. So, I mean, even if you assume that the next Switch or whatever the new console is going to be an upgrade, like, what upgrade are we talking about? Because, like, the Switch is like a PS3. Like, what are they going to do? The next Switch is going to be like a count to a PS4 or a PS4 Pro. Even then, in about 2 more years, it's going to be obsolete.
Oh, not even that. Yeah, like
Yeah.
like this is it's not gonna be on the Switch for the next 10 years. Like they were gonna get a new console, I think imminently. But
Yeah,
I think
but
I
like
think
that
Game
new
Pass is gonna be the
console, like I don't think Nintendo's gonna go like PS5 level. I don't think that they think it's worth the money to do that. I don't even think it's even business smart to do it that way either. I think they found their niche, which is why it was so weird when Call of Duty was like, "Yeah, we're gonna be on Switch for the next 10. We're gonna be on a Nintendo platform for the next 10 years," and we all went, "How?" Like they've kind of found their market. I don't think you're in that market right now. Unless they're gonna like have a completely different team make Nintendo games with Call of Duty on it, and they're just like garbage versions of them that they put together in a year just to maliciously comply with what they said. I don't know how it's gonna work. Like I can't imagine the next Call of Duty that gets announced being on a Nintendo platform right now. I just don't see it. Especially once they stop releasing these games on previous gen. I have no idea how it's gonna work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna either be a cloud version, a really dumbed down single player campaign that's very low settings. That'll probably look like Borderlands 2 or something. Or I don't know.
Game
Or
Pass.
yeah, I don't know.
I'm now. The more we talk about it, the more I think it's just gonna be like, hey, here's Game Pass on Nintendo Switch.
So they're just gonna go they're gonna go the xCloud route.
Well, if you think about it, like Xbox is doing fine. Like they're not, but like Xbox is not really about selling consoles anymore. Like they could care less whether or not.
Oh, no,
but like,
the Microsoft part is if they put it on there, then they win.
well, if you think about it, like how many consoles does Xbox sold? Not huge amounts. They're doing well, but that's not their bread and butter. If you now say, hey, it's on Nintendo Switch, you have like how many consoles? Is it like how many Switches have we sold so far?
Lots.
100 something million.
Yeah, they've sold stupid amounts.
122, almost 123 million. Like you now have 123 million consoles that could theoretically be eligible to be Game Pass subscribers.
Yeah. And I mean, for some games it'll work. And if they're just gonna just everything that's available on Game Pass is just gonna be on Nintendo platforms, there's gonna be a lot of games where it ain't gonna work, and it doesn't matter how good your internet connection is. But if that's what it means, then I guess I mean, if you're a Nintendo console user, like I guess all three of us are, and you don't have any of the other consoles, I mean, that's a great advantage for you because there's a lot of games out there, even on like the indie side, that you could get for a decent price.
See, but I don't think that the networking issue is a problem because like I've been streaming Xbox Game Pass through my phone, and it's surprisingly good. Like I wouldn't play like multiplayer games on there, but I was like dabbling with Atomic Heart, and it was fine. Like it has some issues, but like if you think about a console that you could hook up theoretically via like an Ethernet cable, then I think you would be fine to play it.
It really depends. Like again, like it's such a early time that I think we're still not quite there yet, where it's like to a point that I think we can constantly count on it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really just depends on the game. And like I said, like you wouldn't want to do this for certain games. There are just some games that would not be a good idea. Like fighting games especially just would be a terrible idea.
Yeah, so, fighting games, like online first-person shooters, anything competitive actually.
Like if you're talking about just single-player offline experiences, you're fine. You'll be perfectly fine. There'll be hiccups here and there, but it won't be that bad. But as soon as you start bringing in online play or frame perfect like button inputs that you need, that's a different story, and that's a lot more games than I think people would consider. So it's one of those things, in Call of Duty obviously being the main one that we're talking about, I just don't see it working. So unless, I think the only other option is the downgrade, and it's just how far do you downgrade to make it work to the point that it's like almost unplayable in a way?
Very downgrade. Like 480p.
They'll make it work. Like they've said that they're going to do it, so it's going to happen. So they're going to make it work. It's just going to be a matter of, is it going to be acceptable for the average person? Which is going to be a very interesting conversation the first time that we see a Call of Duty game on a Nintendo platform. I'm so excited to see what that looks like, in the same way that like hockey fans were looking forward to seeing what Arizona was going to be like when they played in a university arena that was like a third of the size of an average NHL arena, just to see what the visual is. That's kind of where I am with this. I want to see what a Call of Duty game runs like. I want to see Digital Foundry's video on this.
We've had Call of Duty games on Nintendo consoles before. Like they were on the Wii.
But the Wii was not nearly as severe a downgrade as the Switch is compared to what current gen consoles are.
It was a pretty big downgrade.
I still don't think it's the same.
Yeah.
I wonder, so Microsoft already owns Bethesda. They get Activision. Maybe they plan on putting Call of Duty into the Doom engine, because that thing will run anywhere. Like Doom Eternal and Doom on Switch runs like you've bought it on like a decent thing. Because even on the, like, you want to play it on the Xbox, it's like you want 120 frames per second. For some reason, this game's just fantastic. Like the Doom engine runs anywhere.
But now they're making a whole separate game, because I don't think, once again, not a software engineer, but I can't imagine it's just a Control A, Control C.
Oh no! I mean,
Control
like
V in the Doom engine.
Maybe going forward, they're going to move Call of Duty to the Doom engine for all consoles, not just Switch. Like they have this plan, and now it's coming to fruition.
I think it's adorable you think that that's where it's going to go. Clearly, after the Activision sale finally goes through, they're buying EA, and then they can use the Frostbite engine that Battlefield games run, because you know how well that runs.
No, don't do that. It'll make it worse. Buy Rockstar, put it into GTA 6. GTA 6 would be a Game Pass game. Ooh, I'm on board, actually.
GTA 5 has to come out on at least 7 more generations before we get a new game, okay?
GTA 5's coming out in the Doom engine.
It's the next thing is GTA 5 is coming out on the Texas Instrument calculators.
That is true. GTA 5 is not on Switch still.
Oh,
Okay.
oh,
We've
we've
forgotten
uncovered
the
it.
main thing.
Guys, we're gonna have to cut it here before we give Rockstar any more ideas here. We don't need. We want him focusing on GTA 6, not GTA 5.
Okay, wait. The important question I have to remember. Okay, yeah, Skyrim is on there. Okay, never mind.
Yes,
Wait,
Skyrim
is
is on Switch.
Fallout? No, I don't think Fallout's on Switch, is it?
No, it's not.
Yeah, but
Todd
Fallout's
Howard
not
needs to put more things on more devices.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna wrap it up there. Thank you so much for listening to us. If you want to find more, we have episodes every week on Wednesdays, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can always find our past episodes by searching for PixelPlay Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to see our lovely faces as we record these, you could always find us on YouTube, searching for PixelPlay Podcast, or we also post videos on Spotify. Yep, you can see our lovely faces on Spotify. If you want to be part of the show, interact with us, you could reach us at our link tree, PixelPlay Podcast. That's linktr.ee/PixelPlay Podcast, and you can get in touch with us. We have Discords, emails, Twitter, Instagram. We got it all. We'd love to chat with you guys. Thank you so much again for watching with us. I've been Kaylan, aka Catastrophe, joined as always by Adam CS Radical and Chris at Gin and Chris. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys next week. Bye for now.